So, welcome to Singapore Computer Society's Women in Tech's International Women's Day 2025 podcast, a podcast celebrating and empowering women who work in Singapore's technology industry in commemoration of the theme of International Women's Day 2025, which is Accelerate Action. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm one of the EXCO members of SCS's Women in Tech chapter myself. This is episode 2 of the podcast this season, and each episode generally features a female leader with unique insights on what it means to succeed as a professional woman in the local tech space, with the aim of inspiring fellow women in tech and encouraging allies to play a part in making the technology industry inclusive and vibrant. So, in today's episode, our guest is Aileen Tan, who is the Group Chief People and Sustainability Officer at Singtel Group. Today, we'll be shining a spotlight on the topic of equal pay and employment opportunities for women. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Aileen herself, who I'd like to invite to do a quick introduction of herself.
Hey, hi everybody. I am Aileen with the Singtel Group, and very honored to be part of this podcast today. What's my passion here? Obviously, is to empower women. I felt that I'm one of the empowered ones and have benefited from many mentoring and coaching and working alongside many great women talent as well. So today, I really would love to, very happy to share my perspective with everybody.
Sure. Do you want to maybe share a bit about what you do at Singtel Group as well?
Yes, I look after the people and sustainability agenda for Singtel Group. I have been with the group for coming to 17 years already, right? And my background actually is, interestingly, I did computer science when I was in the college, and I went on to major statistics in the uni, and I did my master's in psychology. So I always joke with my colleague that I was born like 3 decades too early. Else, I may not be a group chief people sustainability officer today, but perhaps a data scientist.
I see. That's a really interesting journey that you've had. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing. With that, we'll launch right into answering the topic questions for today. So firstly, I'd like to ask you, so in a study by the MIT Sloan professor Danielle Lee, it was actually found that sometimes women are often assessed based on purely their competence in the workplace, whereas men are assessed based on their potential. So in a situation where a female employee feels that she may be less recognized than her male peers, even though her work output is equivalent, or perhaps even of a higher quality, what kind of advice would you give to someone in her position?
It can really be discouraging when one's hard work is not recognized. But I would say that rather than letting frustration build up, why not focus on proactive steps to focus on your value, right? So for instance, I think as a first step, it is important that we need to understand and know our strengths and advocate for ourselves. So the first starting point would be self-awareness. Know what your strengths are and how you can contribute. And the better you know about your value, the more effective you actually can communicate them, right, to whoever you are working with. And very importantly as well, I thought is key for us not to just list down tasks that we do, but highlight, the impact that we made. Important to keep track of our accomplishment so that, when you have a chance to share, instead of speaking to the task, but you speak to the impact, right? And I think that actually demonstrates the difference that you make. And importantly, also speak with confidence, okay? That is really key. Because when you speak with confidence, lots of your ideas, your opinions, and your contributions, come across a lot clearly. And that's actually your first step in terms of how you advocate for yourself, okay? And, one of the things that I always advise, especially the up and coming young leaders, is to increase visibility, okay? Whereby whenever there's an opportunity to volunteer for high profile projects, to present company events, or get a lot more involved in, like for instance yourself, Amanda, in an EXCO or join your employee resource group. I think all these opportunities to build networks and gain exposure actually help to, increase one's visibility. And I think that will be really key. So coming back to, of course, having a very good support system whereby hosts, sponsors, colleagues, allies, actually, and especially those people who can open doors to new opportunities or help you to amplify some of your work is always useful. So a good network is important, right? Now, so you speak to the fact that, sometimes, we may feel undervalued. I think rather than griping and complaining, to people who perhaps can't do anything about it, it may be good to have a good conversation with your leader, with people who matters. But when you start off, it's important to not start off a conversation where we are complaining from a perspective of saying that my contribution is not valued, but rather start off by asking for constructive feedback on areas of growth, right? Because I think when you do that, it comes across a lot more positive and a lot more matured. So I think in a nutshell, always said that, when you feel you're not recognized, don't let resentment build up, because, it's not going to help, to turn the situation around. But importantly, have a growth mindset, stay very resilient. And I think, every opportunity to advocate for what you stand for and speak to the impact and the difference you make.
All right. I actually love how positivity emanated throughout your answer. And you have decided that in response to this question, we should focus on not criticizing people for not recognizing your achievements, but knowing your value and communicating that value, coming from a point of optimism instead of a point of negativity. Now,
Yes.
next, I think I would love to ask you also about the fact that women in general are less likely to negotiate for pay rises or even a bigger salary when making a career change. So can you share with us why you think that may be the case and what you would say to women to encourage them to recognize their economic worth?
Yeah. You see, having the opportunity to work as a HR practitioner, right? Whether in Singapore or outside of Singapore, I speaking from my own personal experience, I think this is really largely influenced by society norms and some cultural perceptions, perhaps. Now, I think if you speak about gender perceptions at the workplace, typically in a male-dominated environment, we all know that men and women are often, perceived a bit differently. I mean, in the first place, we are different, right? In a way. So if you talk about women, we always been, it tend to be seen a bit more collaborative and accommodating, and I think nurturing itself, perhaps, and a man, sometimes workplace, somehow are encouraged to be a lot more assertive, a lot more competitive. And sometimes when it comes to even negotiation, you think about it, they're a lot more aggressive, right? So, and these are some of that perception. And women sometimes also can feel that, hey, if I want to ask for a job promotion, or if even I want to ask for a salary increment, I want to make sure that I'm 100% qualified, right? I'm 100% deserving before I ask for that. Because sometimes, the fear of fearing resistance or fearing the answer, no, I'm not going to give it to you, can be emotionally disturbing. So there's a tendency sometimes you wouldn't want to do that. So culture sometimes also, women, especially in certain cultures, sometimes a very assertive negotiation can really lead to backlash as well. And you can be penalized, for being too pushy. So I think some women sometimes at times may have some of this perception, right, that is running around them. Now, but nonetheless, I thought, the first thing to encourage women to really go out there to get recognized for your own economic worth, in my opinion, got to start from women. So going to start from yourself first, right? And never allow some of this self-imposed threshold that I just talked about, that kind of perception to hold us back from pursuing what we think we rightfully deserve. And a good case in point, for instance, market salaries for your jobs. I think a lot of this information are largely, available in the market, right? So, never shying away from getting information, getting yourself a bit more informed, in terms of the market salary of your job role. I think that is important. And also, I think it's also important to build up skills to negotiate, from a very informed standpoint. Now, so coming back to negotiation of salary, to perhaps put a perspective on the table, employers actually expect candidates to negotiate for pay. So we never take a perspective that people are coming in, that we put a package on the table, they won't negotiate, right? So in a way, I would say that just like a male candidate, a women candidate should just allow and know that you do have the right to negotiate, and we do expect you to negotiate, okay? So, and I think a professional and a well-reasoned discussion around salary is not just acceptable, but I think it's standard. So I think women should give ourselves that right to do that, okay? And again, going back to my earlier point, around self-advocacy, articulating your value and your achievement very confidently, whether it's at performance review or at a salary discussion, I think it's really key. It is a skill set. It is a kind of confidence that you need to build, right? But of course, I always go back to first principle. Now, when we talk about what kind of economic worth you have, it is important to make sure that we focus on continuous learning and development. It's only when you continue to pursue learning, pursue development, you continue to do well, you continue to deliver an impact, you're able to deliver higher value work. I think that actually could justify much higher compensation. So coming back to, I'm really, really glad that I back in Singtel, a company that I have been associated for coming to 17 years, women always have a chance to step up and own our own worth in whatever we do over here. And, we have a system that is really based on meritocracy. So I'm always very proud to tell my colleagues, I joined Singtel. I was given the job because I'm the best fit for the job. I was not given the job to meet a quota. I think that is really, really important. So I feel that, again, going back to my own personal experience, I think women, please, you have every right to negotiate. You have every right, to go out there and pursue and, attain your job worth.
That's great. I really like how you gave us the insight that employers actually expect for candidates to negotiate, and that women shouldn't be discouraged from recognizing their worth. There were a lot of concrete advice that you gave. For example, you said that people can inform themselves on market salaries, people can stay engaged and continue learning and upskilling in order to improve their value as well. So yeah, I really appreciated that. And then lastly, I wanted to ask you, in your experience, what barriers still exist, especially for women who work in a tech company, for example, when it comes to career advancement? And how do organizations create more equitable opportunities for women to grow into leadership roles?
So coming back to some of the barriers, right, around career development for women in the tech sector itself, we know that the tech industry, of course, is predominantly is a very male-dominated environment. Okay, and I think a lot has to do with, again, going back to STEM. How many girls, right, pursue a STEM education when a pool is small. So with a smaller pool, obviously, you have a smaller, proportion of women actually in the tech industry. But nonetheless, I think one of the challenges really around some of these biases and stereotypes whereby women are seen to need to balance work and family responsibilities a bit more. Okay, I give you an example that women may not be more available because of some of their own obligations, right? At the family front, for instance, that's one way. And, at times, like for instance, I give you an example, when a woman goes on a maternity, obviously they have to take some time off, and many women are actually concerned and saying that, does it hinder my career progress? Because I'm going to be away from work for a couple of months, right? And I need to take this particular career break. And does it mean that, I will miss out on high profile assignments or anything, any form of visibility that is really crucial for my career advancement? So I think these are some of the very key real challenges that's happening in the organization. And so I guess, when you think around this concept itself, as an organization, I always said that it is so important for us to celebrate very talented women and, empower them to be able to be successful and balance, both their personal and work front, right? So it's a question of really, how do we best support them, right? And many women not necessarily are getting the best support, right? And when you don't have the right mentor and you don't have the right environment, with good practices, to support women at the workplace, I think that's where problem will start. And you will realize that while you may have women joining the workforce, with a much higher proportion at the lower level, many of them actually made it to the top job at the senior level. So this is something that we have to be very mindful at the organization to make sure that how can we, make sure that we don't discriminate in many ways. Okay, these are some of the barriers that I do see that happens. Okay, now I will take a view, and this is an interesting perspective, right? Because I've been a working mother, for many, many years already. Now I'm very fortunate. My two children have more or less already grown up, but I remember that, when I have to take career break, it's not easy, right? I feel exactly the same. The challenge of really, will I be missing out in terms of for career advancement when I do that? Now, and I work extremely, extremely hard. I have to say that, okay? I need to struggle between balancing family obligations and work obligation. It was not easy, okay? But I also realized that having a very, very supportive family support, my spouse, my partner has been very, very supportive. I think that really, really helps. That's one thing. But the other thing is really working alongside progressive employers, who celebrated our strengths and our contribution, actually keep us going, and that was really, really crucial. So I thought that, and I believe, in all fairness, I feel that these barriers, I don't think will ever go away, right? Because some of these are also self-imposed to some extent, because I wanted to be a very successful women leader, but I want to be a mother that's always by the side, and not missing out key events and key milestones of my children. Now, how do you balance that, right? How do you balance the fact that when you know that you are in the midst of a very, very important meeting, and then you got a call from the school, because the tendency is the school call the mother, they don't call the father, despite the fact that I have gone back to the school and told them, please, there are two numbers that you can call, either the father or the mother, right? We both have equal responsibility towards our children. But nonetheless, there are still some of this, what I said, that society preferences, right, in that sense. So I think at the end of the day, while these barriers, like I said, will always be around, it's a question of we as a lady, as a woman, how do we empower ourselves to find the right balance, right? How do we navigate? Okay. And importantly, one thing I always said, please don't shy away from asking for help. There's nothing wrong to ask for help when you need it. And there's nothing wrong to go back, even to let your supervisor know, I can't join this very important meeting for today because I really, really have to attend my daughter's or my son's graduation in the school, because this is a vital milestone. Right. So as a woman, we have to feel empowered to also know what matters most and know how to prioritize. Now, that level of confidence, right, actually, in my opinion, make you a very different woman to some extent.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned that you can be transparent with your needs, and if you have a supportive employer, then it's really up to you to balance your needs. Pretty good advice. Now, all right, listeners, that was Aileen from Singtel. Today we talked about equal pay and employment opportunities for women, and I think we've really come away with a lot of fantastic learnings. So we hope that you have been inspired by our guest. I personally find her very inspiring, and we hope to see you for the next episode. Thank you for listening.